Hello and welcome back to the Alnwick Castle podcast. I'm Daniel Watkins, and today's podcast is all about working in a castle like Alnwick. You might know that Alnwick Castle is part of Historic Houses, the association for independently run houses, gardens and castles all across the UK. On the podcast, we've previously spoken with Sarah Roller, Director of Policy and Public Affairs for Historic Houses, about the work they do and Alnwick Castle's connections to the group, including free entry for Historic Houses members. You can find this on our podcast back catalogue. Head to episode 67 to hear our conversation there. But this year, Historic Houses are launching a new platform called Work in a Castle, all about the huge variety of careers that heritage and heritage sites can provide. And since Alnwick Castle offers all kinds of jobs that range from tour guide to archery instructor to, podcast host, we spoke to Sarah again to find out more about this project and how you can get involved. We hope you enjoy. We're really happy to be joined by one of our favourite returning guests on this month's Alnwick Castle podcast. Sarah is the Director of Policy and Public Affairs for Historic Houses and is also one of the minds behind the Work in a Castle platform. So hi Sarah, how are you?
Hi Daniel, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me back. What a pleasure to be on the Alnwick podcast again.
It's lovely to have you, and we're here to talk about working in heritage. Where do we start?
Well, I guess a bit by the fact that we've obviously met because we both work in heritage. And I don't know about you, but for me, this was always something that I wanted to pursue once I kind of realised that I could have a career where history and heritage was actually something I was paid to do as my day job, and how fortunate I am to have landed in that kind of role.
I think I'm quite similar. The thing that I always remember is having started as a student working in a castle, at Alnwick specifically, taking a tour, and a little girl on the tour afterwards came up to me and asked, "Do you get to tell stories like this for your job?" And I thought, oh, actually, that is quite a good career. You get to tell all the stories that have ever happened and share them with people.
It's so good, isn't it? And I always remember when I think I was 6, my dad took me to the Tower of London, and my little mind was just blown by the fact that all of these things happened in this place that I could go and visit. And the Tower of London in particular, I was on Tower Green where Anne Boleyn was beheaded. And, children love gory stories. So I think my dad told me that with relish. But it was just amazing. And that is part of all of our jobs. No matter where you fit in the heritage sector, you play a role in allowing people to learn those stories and having their imaginations and creativity light up as a result of it.
It was the Horrible Histories books, I think, that got me into that and thinking it's not just what you learn at school, it's all these other things. And then you get into an environment like this and it's not just the history side of it. There's people with all kinds of backgrounds who you need to make a historical place work. The people who worked here in the past weren't thinking about being historical. There've been all kinds of trades and skills over years and years and years that have developed and built up that are almost quite unique to historic places. And you get to meet them when you work here and think, you do that for your job. You keep this place standing, or you figure out how to get Wi-Fi through 6 foot of stone wall.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? And I always think when I was a history student and I thought I wanted to work in heritage, I think I thought that I would have to have a PhD in furniture history because the career path that was in heritage was a curator. And it was only when I started working in heritage did I realise that that's absolutely not the background that most people who work in a castle, whether it's Alnwick or anywhere else, come from. People come from all walks of life. And even our office at Historic Houses, we have people who have professional and cultural backgrounds that come from so many different places. And it takes all of us, as you say, to knit together and make things happen. So yeah, I think it's a much broader career sector than people ever think it is on paper.
Curators are really important. We love our curators here at Alnwick. It isn't the only kind of thing you need to do. You don't need to have that PhD. You don't need to have a degree in history, but you can be interested, you can have a passion for these sorts of fields and come at it from a completely different angle. And that's kind of what the Work in a Castle platform's trying to promote. So we should probably ask, what is Work in a Castle?
Well, good question, Daniel. It is our new platform. The team at Historic Houses have built this, and we're really, really excited to launch it, because for us, it's about recognising that, well, firstly, heritage is a community. So first and foremost, we want this to be a place that people can connect with each other, whether they work in heritage already and they're connecting with their colleagues, or whether they're people who are thinking about, maybe this is something I could do, and they want to learn a bit more about it. They want to see job postings. They want to talk to people about their own journeys, about, finding people with backgrounds that they might share and learning about how they've ended up. What does their job title actually mean? Like, what does the day in a life look like of a brand manager or an education officer, or all of these other things? Like, what does it actually really look like? And so for us, it's also about championing the fact that the places we work with at Historic Houses, or who are members of us, are businesses. They need employees, really talented, brilliant, dynamic, lovely people to make them work, to be creative, to help them thrive, and to make sure that they can keep going for centuries to come, so that people can still enjoy visiting them. So Work in a Castle is kind of tying up lots of threads, but we hope it will be a really useful platform for people to learn about the jobs that they might be able to have in heritage, to inspire them to think about heritage as something that can be a place of work or a career path, and to help facilitate conversations. Historic houses are at the heart of their communities locally, and I always think that some of the best conversations I've had with friends or with family have been doing a big walk in a park around a castle, about enjoying these spaces as places that you can connect with each other. And so this platform will bring that online into the 21st century, into 2026, and help people do that no matter where they are in the UK and what kind of heritage they're interested in.
Because without the people who work at these sorts of places, they're not able to open.
Completely. So we've just had back our stats from 2025 from our member places, and we had, between them, they had 21.3 million visitors last year, which is a huge number of people who get to go and enjoy these sites. And that's just paid for entry. So many more people will be enjoying the landscapes and walking in the grounds where they're freely accessible. And they also supported 12,000 jobs, which is a huge number of jobs. That's like the jobs at member places alone, let alone the ecosystems that exist around them. So yeah, there's a huge amount there, and they're places that people really love working at and visiting.
And like you say, it's not just curators exclusively who work at these places. You could have those things that you might expect in a historic place, but actually you can work in retail, but work in retail in an amazing gift shop, like lots of historic house places and Alnwick Castle have. You can put your retail mind to work in a totally different context than you might expect. This platform has only just started, but it really emphasizes those kinds of things where you can rethink a job that you don't associate with a place like this.
Yeah, massively. So two of the favourite people we've spoken to as the course of building up this campaign and platform, we spoke to Angie, who is the filming coordinator at Castle Howard, and she was talking about how important creative problem solving is in that job, because you have your Netflix production crew are on site and they say, well, we need this thing to happen. And you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get this to happen right now? And we have to take into account the fact that this room is really special and we can't touch this thing or that thing. And talking about, well, actually so much of it is just creative problem solving and getting to do that in an amazing, really beautiful place, working with amazing production crews and working with a beautiful heritage site. And what a fun job. And the other one, which I really enjoyed hearing about, because I had never even considered it, was we spoke to Tahid, who's a data scientist at Blenheim Palace. And he said that he was studying and he was like, I need a real world set of data to do some modelling with and to solve some problems with. So he worked with Blenheim and got some data from them and eventually ended up joining their team because they were really impressed with what he did. But he spoke about the fact that he used data to model visitor numbers at like busy times, to figure out where the pinch points in their their visitor routes were. So, what time do people all go to the loo or use the restaurant or visit the gift shop? When do people arrive? Where do we need more staff? Where do we need less staff? So interesting. And again, we never think about that kind of role actually being really important in how you run a big visitor business. Like Blenheim has only 1 million visitors every year. So you do need to be able to predict people's behavior within that. It's fascinating. And I don't think anyone would have ever thought that that was a job they could have in a palace.
That sort of information is so interesting and it's so useful and helpful. But has it been going to all these different places that has started the Work in a Castle campaign? Has it been going and meeting all of these people across the country as part of your job that made you realise that this sort of thing's needed?
I think it's twofold. So for me, I think the brilliant people I get to meet as part of the job is one of the best parts of it. I am always so lucky to be able to go and visit beautiful places, but actually it's the warm welcome you get and the brilliant, creative jobs and people that you meet every day that makes it what it is and really make it into a really lovely job and building those connections. But from the other side of the sort of coin, I guess, is that historic houses exist to help and support the places who are members of it, all 1,450 of them. And one of the things that we've heard from people time and time again over the years is that hiring staff can be quite tricky, sometimes because you're in a remote area, but also that roles evolve in a way that they don't in a kind of standard office job. And a lot of people I've met over the course of my 4 years here are people who are doing really cool, creative, interesting roles now, but they probably didn't start doing that thing. They started in one job and their role's grown because their manager has seen that actually, they're really good at this. And so we'll give them that thing to do. And they've taken on things that they care about. And so it's not quite as open and shut as just, here's a job advert, here's a CV and cover letter. Actually, these things come about through conversations, through knowledge sharing, through that connection. We're not a sector who hires in the way necessarily that other sectors do. And so I think from that side, it's how can we help our members and how can we help more people engage with them? So it's the kind of the perfect project in that we think we're helping lots of different groups and kind of ticking off lots of parts of our mission in this platform.
Yeah, it's kind of twofold, like you say, that you've got people who are coming from different backgrounds and using those skills in a different context, a historic house, a castle, a garden, whatever it might be. But then you've got the jobs that exist at these places that you don't get to do in other places. Like you might get to be involved with filming. And there are several people who work here at Alnwick Castle who have worked in film previously. They are credited. If you watch Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, you will see their names in the end credits. And they have ended up coming here working as archery instructors or film tour guides, telling people about the films that they themselves worked on a few years before. Transferable skills is a really big part of this whole thing.
Absolutely. I mean, the sheer number of incredibly cool roles that are on offer at Alnwick. Every time I've been like, I can't believe someone gets to do this as their job every day. It's so fun. But yeah, it's that kind of range of transferable skills, as you say. And I look at jobs I've had in the past. So my first job was in a historic house, and that definitely evolved because I started doing, normal. Well, everything is normal in a historic house, but I started doing sort of general tasks. And then the longer I was there, the more my areas of interest kind of came to the fore. And the more my manager was like, well, you're really good at that thing, so let's put you on that, which was really fun. And that's, I think, how a lot of people have had it. And those transferable skills have been really useful in this job too, and other jobs I've done in the interim. So yeah, definitely. But tell me more about some of the fun jobs you have at Alnwick. I love learning about everything that goes on there.
Well, as far as our management team goes, it's a little bit like you say, people get into things based on their interests and things that they are going to be better at, whether that is organising events or author talks. Our last podcast episode was with Tracy Borman, talking about her coming to speak about her new book here at the castle. That's part of my job, but it wasn't a couple of years ago. I was able to set up this program of bringing authors and historians to speak at the castle. You can come in from a retail or a cafe point of view, or come in as a chef, start to look at the history of food here at the castle and think, how can I reflect that in what visitors get to eat, getting the chance to have a go at some of those flavours that they ate here 100 years ago, but reflect that for hundreds or thousands of people who come and visit. And then when you're with our visitor-facing team, so we're here when we're open, you can be everything from a broomstick training instructor to an expert in medieval medicine to a medieval artisan. You can be a tour guide. You can be interested in art history, social history, furniture, medieval, Tudor, Georgian, Victorian. We've got all the periods covered. You can be a storyteller. You can just like talking to people and be that friendly face at the start. It's great to have an interest and a passion for the history of the place, and everyone's got a passion for the place, but you don't have to know all the dates and all the people and keep in your head which Earl of Northumberland died in which battle to work here. You can just really like talking to people from all over the world and be at one of our entry points, be in our admissions hall, tell them about what's going on today on the day that they're here. And there are other people who really love remembering all those dates and all those facts and figures, and they'll be able to tell you about that bit. It's a really good range of people. We've got people who had worked in film production, people who worked in the railways, people who were civil servants, people who have been teachers. We've got students, we've got graduates, we've got people who want to be curators. We've got people who never thought about becoming an archivist or a curator, but saw the work that ours do, and suddenly their development starts to take a sidetrack. People who've worked in hospitality in other areas, who have maybe managed a pub or worked in a hotel and thought, let's do that, but somewhere really interesting. So everybody kind of comes together and you just get a great diverse range of people.
It's so true, isn't it? And I think back, so as I said, my first job was in a historic house, and I learned so much about working in a heritage site as part of that job. But actually, the community that I had there and the wonderful people I met and worked with was so nice. And I'm still in touch with lots of them, 6 years later. And they're kind of like an extended family to me still. So how lovely. And it's also, for me, it's always been about, yes, it's about the 9 to 5, but also it's about everything outside of that. It's about being in a beautiful place, about how fun to get to like go for a walk around the castle in your lunch break and to have lovely colleagues and to be part of a community.
It is a very good lunch spot, I have to say. My next question is probably, we've talked about what it's like working here, but why should people who are visiting Alnwick Castle or any of the other historic houses, why should they care about this sort of thing? Why should people want to know about the people who work in heritage and maybe want to give it a go themselves?
I think because it's a really rewarding place to work. I mean, I'm biased, but and so are you, Daniel, actually. But no, I mean, for me, it's about saying that actually there's a world beyond the office. The office does not have to look like grey walls and suits and kind of like, we can sometimes get in our own heads about what we're expected to work on and kind of forget that there are hundreds of interesting jobs out there, and we just might not have the impetus or know exactly what they are, and therefore they feel out of reach. Working in heritage won't be for everyone, but that's okay. And actually, if people enjoy learning a little bit about the stories and the things that people do in amazing historic places and how they help keep them alive, that's great too. And if they decide actually at the end, well, maybe I do want to work in HR at Chatsworth rather than HR in my office, or maybe I do want to be a chef at Alnwick rather than being a chef in my local pub, how great. We've given people a broader horizon to consider about what their career might look like, and also reminded them that sometimes it's about more than just a career, and that a job can be part of a community and it can be really rewarding too. Historic houses, places, are custodians of heritage. They look after it on behalf of the nation, on behalf of us all, and they're places which give a lot of joy to people too. And if you want to be part of that mission, that's also a nice added bonus.
And we should probably mention at this point, people, even if they're not working in a historic houses member place, they can become a member and get all kinds of great benefits. We talked about this a little bit last time you were on the podcast, but I think it's probably worth repeating. Alnwick Castle is still a member property of the association, so it's a good chance for
Yeah, absolutely. Historic houses exist to champion and support and advocate for independent heritage places exactly like Alnwick. And by joining and becoming a member, not only are you supporting our work, but you're also able to get into 300 or so of our member places for free with your historic houses card. So it's a win-win situation.
We've talked about the data scientists and some of the less usual jobs, but what are some of the most unique jobs you've come across in the various historic houses places you've come across? Something that might come up on this platform that can only exist in a place like this?
Good question. I think a lot of the conservation work that happens is stuff people don't know about. I've just watched a really beautiful video about conservation assistants. I think when people think conservation, they might think quite sciencey or quite studio-y, but actually it can involve, you need a really good eye for detail and a really close attention to detail to do it well and to be really precise. But yeah, you can work in conservation and you can go around with your little paintbrush and your tiny vacuum, like conservation vacuum cleaner, and hoover things and tidy them up and keep them safe. And a lot of it is condition reporting. So you're looking at things year on year and seeing if there's any deterioration, which is a really fun and interesting job, I think, if that's the skill set you have. One of my favourite things that I got to do at the end of last year was we were at the Bishop's Palace in Wales, which is an amazing site, definitely worth a visit. And every day they feed the swans which live in the moat around it, and that's just part of someone's job. And Siobhan let me do it the day we were there, which was honestly like made my year. I had so much fun. But yeah, you get to feed the swans. How fun is that? And there's like the swan has to ring the bell cord before you give it any food. It's amazing. Other jobs that only exist in historic houses places, I think some of the historical interpretation ones. Obviously, Alnwick has its amazing medieval courtyard, and people who get to dress up and talk about things and kind of live that world, and encourage people to be quite tactile and to think about how not just people like existed in the past, but really how they lived in the same way that how we live today. So fun.
And do you have a dream heritage job if you had your pick of absolutely anything that could ever come up on the Work in a Castle platform?
Oh, well, the thing that I discovered, too late for it to be my career, but I find I love, is interpretation. I always thought that to be a curator meant doing the interpretation, but actually being an interpretation specialist is what you do. And interpretation is basically being the person who's the bridge between the curator or the archivist who's doing like really dense academic research sometimes and the public. Curators are amazing people. They have an amazing skill set, but sometimes they're not always the best at being able to communicate really clearly with people about their research or about what they've done. And to be an interpretation specialist is to be that bridge, to take that research, to transform it into a coherent narrative and to tell that story in an engaging way. And for me, part of the reason I love history and heritage is because I love stories. I love narrative. I love how we use history in our everyday lives in the present. And that's why I have this job, I guess. So yeah, working in interpretation would be the kind of thing I look out for. And I'm always so jealous when I meet people who get to do it on a daily basis. I'm like, oh, that's so fun. Maybe one day, but not anytime soon.
I think the one for me, I'm thinking 100 years in the past again, but on the exit from our staterooms is a wall display of all of the household staff wages for the year 1908. And you've got people like Mr. Sherlock, the kitchen man. You have the maids, the valets, the footmen. But one of the highest paid jobs out of all of them is the librarian. And you have seen the Alnwick Castle Library. Many people listening to this will have seen the Alnwick Castle Library. To not only be paid to be the librarian of that library, but to be one of the best paid people in the entire castle to be in charge of that library. I would have to go back to 1908 to be able to do it, but I think that would be my pick.
That sounds like a great choice, Dan.
What do you hope that people will see and take away when they visit the Work in a Castle website, follow them on social media, and learn about places like Chatsworth, like Alnwick Castle? What is it that you hope a year from now that this platform's doing for places like this?
I guess for me, I hope it's opening people's eyes to the hard work that goes on at these places and inspiring them to think that anyone can work here and that they are open to all people. You don't have to come from any kind of background in particular to work at a historic houses place or a heritage site at all. It takes everyone, it takes all sorts, and that working in a castle can be for everyone if that's what you want.
And the final thing to say is, where do people need to go to actually see these jobs and these careers?
Absolutely. So our platform is Work in a Castle. You can Google us, but we are workinacastle.com. And we also are Work in a Castle on Instagram and LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Well, I hope people have enjoyed listening to this. I hope some people then end up going to the website, and working in a castle is not a bad place to work. So thank you very much for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you.
It was brilliant to talk to Sarah about work in a castle, and we wish her all the best for her own next chapter in her career in heritage. For more about the Work in a Castle platform, please visit their website, where you'll also be able to find out about Historic Houses membership, or you can follow Work in a Castle on social media at Work in a Castle. The platform launched on the 20th of April this year, and you'll find all kinds of useful information. And if you've been inspired to start your own heritage career here at Alnwick, please visit alnwickcastle.com/jobs, where you'll find any opportunities to join our teams as they become available. Please join us again on the podcast next month, when we'll be meeting our archivist for a behind-the-scenes look at a brand new exhibition for 2026, The Shot Heard Round the World, Earl Percy and the American Revolutionary War. Until then, I've been Daniel. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.